Joining us right now to talk more about that is Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. It's always great to be with you.
What do you expect to take place within the next 90 days, sir?
Well, we have a lot of work to do, but I think this is the first time you've had a direct agreement between the two presidents, President Xi and President Trump. I think President Xi made some very strong commitments on changing structural and non-structural issues. And if we can get this negotiated and get a real agreement, I think this is the single biggest opportunity for U.S. business and U.S. workers.
It sure is. Talk to us about the issues here, because we've been talking a lot over the last year and a half, as the president has, and yourself, about the intellectual property theft, about the forced transfer of technology, about the idea that China has to open up its markets. But then, of course, there's the whole trade issue and China buying more stuff from the United States. Do you expect those other big issues, like the transfer of technology, like the theft of IP, to be addressed over the coming, whether it's 90 days or beyond?
Maria, let me be clear on this, because I think there's been some confusion. I think President Trump has always been focused on the structural issues, including IP and technology and forced joint ventures. And what he's always said, and we've said to China, is that if we can correct these issues and they open their markets, the trade deficit will take care of itself. So there are both specific discussions. This has to be about making structural changes. This isn't just about creating purchase orders. But having said that, there are also specific commitments in the near term on agriculture, LNG, industrial products, autos, that China has come back with specific targets that they think they can meet. And I think those are very big commitments. They've put on the table, as I mentioned, additional purchases of $1.2 trillion. And if that's real, and again, we have to have a negotiated agreement and have this on paper, but if that's real, that will close the trade deficit. And it will be the structural changes that lead to U.S. companies being able to compete fairly in what's a growing China middle class. And this is a great opportunity for them economically and for U.S.
Well, that's a big number. And so, in other words, they verbally agreed to buy $1.2 trillion of more things from the United States.
They have said that these are targets and that is their expectation, and that in the short term there would be some very specific commitments. We're in the process of now trying to go over the agricultural commitment. That'll be the first thing that gets addressed in the next few weeks. And Bob Lighthizer will be leading the specifics of actually negotiating this as USTR and putting it into a legally binding agreement.
And I recognize, Secretary, these things do not happen overnight. You're talking about a bureaucracy of China that really looks at things over the long term. So how long would you give it in terms of a change in behavior on the other things, like the theft of intellectual property and opening up their markets to foreigners?
There's 142 structural items we've discussed in great detail. Our expectation is that phase one will be implemented immediately. And when I say immediately, that's part of the 90-day negotiation with specific time frames, specific commitments. And phase two will be very quickly as well. So again, we expect that during the 90-day period, we can lock in very specific commitments. And these were representations that were made by President Xi directly to President Trump. President Trump will stay involved in the negotiation. And again, this is an agreement between the two presidents that we now have to execute.
That's terrific. And just the fact that this is being dealt with on the presidential level speaks volumes. What is phase two specifically?
Well, there are a series of structural issues. Some of them can be implemented very quickly. Some of them, I expect, will be implemented on a rolling basis. But this is not about making commitments to things, that are pie in the sky over the next 2 or 3 years. Our expectation is there will be specific deliverables, there will be specific timelines, and that we have an agreement that there will be penalties if China does not meet those timelines and those commitments.
And the penalties being what? The tariffs to go back in place?
Tariffs, but without reciprocal tariffs, attacking us. So again, this will be a real a real agreement again, and not that we can accomplish everything in 90 days, but we expect to make a lot of progress, and President Trump will be directly involved. We met with him yesterday. The team updated him, worked on a game plan going forward, and we will be updating him weekly.
And we know this is a really big deal, which is why the markets were rallying yesterday on this news. There's also the Mexico-Canada agreement the president signed, the USMCA, along with the leaders of Mexico and Canada at the G20 as well, which was quite impressive. But people are wondering if, in fact, that gets ratified with the new Congress. There are a number of Democratic congressmen, Secretary, that have said, look, we can't sign this the way it is right now. Is the president prepared to make changes to USMCA come the new Congress?
Well, let me comment. I think Ambassador Lighthizer has done a great job on this agreement. And there are very, very significant changes. Again, structural changes, not just U.S. content on autos, which is important, but there's IP protection, there's financial services protection, there's issues on pharmaceuticals. This is an incredibly complex deal that Ambassador Lighthizer negotiated in a year and a half. The deal was signed by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and I think this is going to be an agreement that President Trump expects is going to be taken to Congress and passed. And as he said on Air Force One, if it's not passed, he's going to terminate the existing agreement. So for those who think they can get a better agreement, this is a very, very good agreement, and Lighthizer has done a great job negotiating this and making big changes, whether it's agricultural, autos, or IP, or financial services. This is a big change, and people who say this is just NAFTA 2.0 don't understand the details.
Yeah, I think you make a really important point right there, because some of the people on the left, the Democratic congressmen who are saying this is not ready for signage yet, are basically saying, look, we need many more industries involved, not just autos. For example, Pennsylvania Congressman Matt Cartwright was with me on Sunday Morning Futures. He said he's not supporting this deal the way it is here. Watch this.
The current deal is a step in that direction, but it's got to be made a lot stronger. And what I'm looking for is President Trump to indicate that this is not the end of the line. This is not the deal that he's going to be satisfied with. We want to see President Trump sharpen his pencil and do a better job at helping American manufacturing workers.
Yeah.
The current deal doesn't do that.
Am I right to assume you will not vote for this deal the way it is right now?
No, unless it's made clear somehow that this is only a temporary position, that we're going to move on to broadening its effect to the entire manufacturing sector in this country.
Are you getting ready for a fight on this, Mr. Secretary?
Maria, there's lots of people who want to turn this into political issues. Bob has kept, many people apprised. He's spoken to Democrats. He's spoken to Republicans. He's spoken to business people. He's spoken to labor. This is a great deal, and there's people who will want to make this a political issue. I think this is a very big win for the U.S. economy, U.S. agricultural, U.S. business. And my expectation is this gets over the finish line, and people who think they can micromanage the deal for political reasons because they don't want to support the president, that's a bad strategy.